On this episode of Small Business Stories, we have Dereck Yagle, the owner of Flugers Bike Shop, right here in Longview, Texas. Dereck has an awesome story to share with us today, and we hope that you enjoy it as well. And remember, click that like and subscribe button so you can hear every episode of Small Business Stories. All right, so we're up for real this time.
Got to go.
We got Dereck Yagle with us today, man. Super excited to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Well, thank you, man. So episode number 3 here. We've actually, believe it or not, we've gotten about 160 people to download our crazy little podcast and actually listen to, or they downloaded it, whether they listened to it or not, I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, that's pretty exciting. So hopefully we'll get the word out about you and your business, which is Flugers Bike Shop.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Flugers, and tell us a little bit about how Flugers came to be.
All right. My name's Dereck, and so Flugers was something during the pandemic. You know, I was working a job that I was on the road in sales, and I was like everybody else. I was getting out, I was overlanding with my Jeep. I was getting out, and I was getting into mountain biking, recreational kayaking, and I was shopping for that kind of stuff. And I found that there's obviously a need for it. And I saw that my history was retail, which I'm sure we'll get into here in the podcast. But it got to the point where I felt like everything that I've done in the past of my careers, it felt like it was directed to something like this. And throughout a lot of prayer and a lot of, family support and things like that, Flugers was just kind of something that was just eventually, determined to be for me to have as a retail store and community development. I wanted something that I can give back a little bit more and share a little bit more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, in 2021, we opened Flugers in April. And so we just celebrated 3 years this year.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. And so unlike some of your other guests on the podcast, I'm a lot earlier, I'm fresh, I've flipped from, working for an employer for literally all my life since college.
Yeah.
And now I'm, working for myself, and it's been it's been a fun adventure so far in 3 years. I mean, I'm learning something new every day, but Flugers is, growing. It's growing rapid right now, and it's in demand still. There's people that are just wanting to get out and explore.
Yeah, I feel like this is completely anecdotal, but I feel like our generation, 90s kids, millennials, are kind of into more outdoor stuff and fitness, and and I don't know if it's just kind of like a component of you hang out with the kind of people that are like-minded as you, but like a lot of my friends are into fitness, and a lot of them have bikes, and we like to go out and hit the trails on occasion, and go take a little ride and stuff like that. I think it seems like Flugers kind of happened at the right time in some respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did. I mean, I kind of wanted to do something like this years ago, with a little bit of a different twist. So it was good timing for me, right? It was just, timing on my side, plus with COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID is obviously a very tragic and bad thing, but there's some things that came out of it, and people realized that outdoors is really needed. I mean, people were getting off of tablets, and kids were actually getting bored in the house.
Yeah.
They're like, there's something else. Like, my eyes are kind of, drying up, let's go outside for a little while.
Right.
And we did. I mean, it was good timing on our part. It's something that was needed. And like I said, I mean, we hope to even expand that even more, expose the trails, expose the waterways, expose things in East Texas that a lot of people don't realize is here. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff until I decided, I wanted to get a mountain bike because some of my friends had them. Mm-hmm. I didn't even realize just how many places there were you could go, dedicated to the activity. Mm-hmm. There's trails all over the place. They've got some in White Oak. There's some in Mobberly over there behind the church. There's what I hear is an awesome set of trails down kind of by Lake Cherokee, which I haven't gotten to go to yet. I want to check those out.
So that is a privately owned trail. So it's a gentleman that built some on his property. I actually spoke to him right before this podcast.
Yeah.
He's looking to open it up in probably October for some free rides.
Cool.
So there will be some opportunity in the future, and we hope to exploit that, obviously, on our social medias and things too. But it's like no other. I mean, it's a trail that really makes you feel like you're in a whole other part of the country. I mean, it's really neat. He's done really well out there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey to Flugers. You mentioned a while ago that you started off in retail, and you've kind of worked a 9-to-5 for most of your life. How old are you anyway?
I'm 39.
39.
Yeah.
All right. So for, say, 18 years, you worked for someone else. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I've kind of had an entrepreneur side, but out of high school and right at my senior year, I graduated from White Oak right here down the road. So on the way here, I kind of went down memory lane. I kind of took the long way and kind of came through White Oak.
Yeah.
So I worked retail at the mall, Longview Mall, and I worked at Finish Line was my first. Loved basketball in high school. That was my sport.
So you were slinging sneakers.
Oh man, I loved me some. Jordans were out that time. I was trying to really get a discount, really, because my parents made me. My parents were funny. They were like, "All right, I see the price of these shoes. You want these shoes?" But at that point, they're like, "Well, you buy the left one, we'll buy the right one." And so I figured out if I get a employee discount, my half came even cheaper. So, so I started working for Finish Line in retail. Really loved it. I worked up. I think as soon as I graduated, right out of high school, I got the assistant manager job of it. And a lot of my friends went off into the oil field and things like that. And it was kind of like, man, am I making this right move? It's fun, but what's the investment? What am I doing? And at the time, I was like, man, this is a nice paycheck. I'm around people. I love to socialize. It was great. So I worked for Finish Line, and then I got recruited to Aeropostale, which is no longer in our mall, just recently. And after that, I left Aeropostale, and I started my own mobile detailing and DJing business.
That's a combo.
Yeah. So I started DJing in college for like high school reunions, dances. My first gig was at Kilgore College. Yeah. I was so nervous. I had all my little turntable and all my burnt CDs that were frowned upon right now.
Burnt CDs.
Yes.
Yeah, man, I remember those.
Yeah, I just had books of them, and it was nerve wracking, but it got me on that entrepreneur side of like doing my own thing, seeing what was out there. And so on the weekends, I was after I left retail, I was DJing weddings, whatever gig I can get. And then I went to doing mobile detailing out of the same trailer I was doing DJing out of. And the detailing thing is, I just always enjoyed seeing a clean vehicle of mine. It was kind of one of those things. It's funny though, after I started detailing cars, mine was never clean. It was always somebody else's, one of those things.
Cobbler's kid has the worst shoes, right?
Exactly. So it was fun because I started that. I opened a brick and mortar. I rented a place in White Oak. So I hired like 3 people. I was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
Had no clue anything about business. I wasn't paying the right taxes. I wasn't, I got over my head quick.
Yeah.
It was good business, and I didn't charge enough. So people kept coming back. I think I had like an 84. I think I looked it up, 84% return on customers. Well, it's because I was charging $45 for a detail that should have been $80,
Right.
And at that time I was just, young, and I was eager and wanting to kind of, showcase what I could do, but I didn't have my head on straight for that,
Yeah.
So I jumped back out of that and went back into retail. It was a lot simpler. I knew retail. I knew I could get a paycheck every other week. So that was a lot simpler.
So so you worked at Finish Line for a couple of years, and then you're like, I don't want to do this. I want to go try to do my own thing and see if I can make a business myself.
Absolutely.
And so you started the DJ thing, and you did that for a little while, and then decided you'd start the detailing thing. So when you went from doing the mobile detailing to the brick and mortar, you hired a few people to work for you, and I guess you kind of made one of those classic rookie business owner mistakes where you didn't factor in all the costs of doing business, like taxes and things like that. And one thing too, my wife went to school for business, and she got a fashion merchandising degree, which she doesn't use it technically, but it's come in handy for her. But she said, we had to, as part of our degree, we had to do a business plan. And she said mine was a boutique, a brick and mortar boutique. She was like, and the second I opened a store, quote unquote, on my proverbial business that I was doing, it just wrecked shop on everything.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's kind of what happened on the detailing deal, huh?
Kind of. I mean, I had a really nice customer that loved our work. He loved having me out there at it on site because we were on site mobile detailing, right? And he's like, man, I got this place. I got this 2-bay shop in White Oak that we just took over, and I'd love to have you in there. I was like, awesome. What would it cost? And he told me, and I was like, oh, I could do that. Let's try it out. And I think we signed like a 6-month lease. It wasn't anything too crazy commitment, so I didn't feel...
That was smart.
Yeah, I didn't feel too crazy, that I'm getting over my head real quick. But then, I get these calls like, oh, you want a credit card machine? You got to run a debit card. I'm like, yeah, I need one of those. And then next thing you know, back then, the percentages and things like that, I didn't factor in. I didn't, it was a lot of new stuff that just came at me quick that I wasn't ready for. And so the winter was coming up. And as a detailer, winter's coming. Not as many people get their stuff washed
because it's raining all the time.
Yeah, and so I just was like, you know what? I should probably just shut the doors now before I get too overwhelmed.
Right.
And it is one of those things I look back on, and I see detail in places, brick and mortars, that I'm like, man, that could have been me as an empire. I could have had that if I would have just stayed with it, because I felt like it was something that a lot of people weren't doing back then.
No, because that would have been what
2005, 2006. I was kind of trying to, but yeah. My dad and I outrigged my enclosed trailer, and we did it all ourselves, and it was a learning process.
Sure.
I definitely learned a lot. It just, on the business side, I didn't learn as much ahead of time, that it got kind of overwhelming.
Well, and the thing too is, like, back in those days, there wasn't TikTok and YouTube wasn't that big of a thing.
Right.
It was kind of just starting out, and then at that point, it was just stupid videos of a guy demanding chicken sandwiches and waffle fries from his girlfriend for free. If you remember that video,
yes,
shout out to you.
Yes.
But yeah, there wasn't as much resources out there for a new business owner as there is now. But obviously having that experience definitely taught you some things that would come in handy later on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of them was, don't dive in and not know what you're getting into, so I did a lot more homework. I mean, I went to Kilgore for business. I didn't end up, getting a degree or anything, but there were some things and courses that I was able to take, at night that they offered that I did learn a lot more stuff at too.
Right.
But I'd say my next phase, working for an employer, which was Flanders Electric off of Harrison Road in Longview.
You worked at Flanders Electric?
Yeah.
My dad worked there for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that?
Chris Godfrey.
Absolutely, yes. So I worked out there. My dad was the manager there, Dereck Yagle. He was there for 40 years.
Okay.
And so I started in the maintenance division right after I ended up closing my detailing business. I worked at Flanders as in maintenance department. And
hey, bring that mic a little bit further towards your. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I ended up shutting down my detailing business, and my dad was like, "Come work for us." And as much as I didn't want to work for the man at that time, I was like, "Man, I guess so. It's better than nothing." Hey,
steady paycheck. You're coming off of maybe not a failed business venture, but one that just didn't quite get off the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I took the maintenance position. I ended up working my way into customer service at Flanders. And I then worked there for about 2.5 years. And then they transferred. I actually didn't. I transferred to the location in Florida for 2 years.
Okay.
To take over their customer service. So I was a customer service supervisor. That phase right there is really what taught me a lot more about whether it's customer service, numbers. We were involved in getting the quotes out to all of the customers. So I got really involved in that. And then I applied back to Texas as a sales rep. And I got that one. So I transferred back to Texas. And this was probably around 2015.
Okay.
So I spent about 11 years with Flanders.
Yeah, it's a good long while.
Yeah. Great company. I mean, my dad, like I said, worked for him for 40 years. Your family.
Yeah, Dad was there for probably close to 20 years, maybe. I don't remember exactly, but he always had great things to say about him, and he liked his time there.
Yeah.
So from 2006-ish, 5-ish to 2015, you worked at Flunders, and you worked in customer service, and you did some sales and stuff like that. What experiences did you learn on your W-2 job that would later kind of come in to help you when you got back into the business world?
Sure. So a lot of organization, right? Structure too. As far as like Flunders, because customer service was really something that it relayed from the shop to the sales reps,
right,
or directly to our customers. And so to me, it made it to where, for one, communication is key. I found it, with that job, I made some difficult calls to where whether I was charging you more than we originally quoted, or we were not going to be able to make the deadline that we originally promised.
Yeah.
That wasn't always the case, but there was those tough calls where I was just like, oh, I got to pick up the phone and call this guy. He's not going to be happy, And then once I got into sales, that was even more so. Like I was the guy that had to, put bandages on things and make up for stuff. And some of it was lunches, some guys were that easy. Some guys I had to have sit down conversations with them and their boss because something failed or something went up. Again, that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
There's always but I learned a lot from that of just saying, hey, there's a relationship to be made. And once you make that relationship, and that's what I love about retail too, is, you build a relationship, you get that more interaction. They just come to you instead of you having to go to them. As a sales rep, I was always having to go on the road and make these conversations and have these conversations or educate people on what we offer as a company. And that was neat. I loved that. I felt like that fed my entrepreneur side. I could go out, teach them about what we offer, try to gain their business, their trust, and a friendship, in a way, and then try to grow that. Sometimes it was harder than others. I love that challenge.
Yeah.
And so I learned that. That's kind of was like, hey, sometimes people are easily pleased and they'll take you in, like, heck yeah, that's awesome. We need that. And then some people are like, oh, we're already using so-and-so. How is yours better?
Right.
And so, that was a huge turning point for me to learn there's a lot to gain from just getting people in the door and trusting what you have to offer and educate them on why.
Yeah.
And that's what we do now. We get you in, we figure out where you're going to ride at. We don't want to sell you a downhill mountain bike in East Texas,
Right.
That'd be redundant. Yeah. you wouldn't need that. So there's just ways that I've learned in the past of whether it's customer service, organizing that and being in control of saying, hey, we don't need to make it harder than what it is. Let's just, it is a tough phone call sometimes. I had a tough phone call this morning. A bike is on back order that I didn't realize was when the customer ordered it. I had that conversation with them. They were pretty pleased that I called them at least and let them know, obviously. But it happens daily still, but it's easier now.
It does. And I think the longer I've been in business, the more I've come to understand that people really appreciate it when you just level with them. And I, as a customer, appreciate that, when because we don't live in a perfect world. We're all people. We all, we have people that are helping to deliver our products, people who are helping to manufacture the products, people who are helping to sell the products, to, all this different stuff, and all these people are involved. Well, we're all flawed, and things happen. There's a lot of stuff that's out of our control in business, whether it's, on-time delivery of products or the availability of raw materials or, any number of things that we just simply don't have any control over. And what I found is that the earlier and the more directly you can address the issue with the customer, the happier they're going to be. They may not be glad to hear the news, but they will be thankful that you were upfront with them and say, hey, unfortunately, so-and-so happened, but here's what we're going to do. And, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but we think you're really going to be happy with the product in the end. And, we really appreciate you understanding. And listen, if there's anything we can do in the meantime, please let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I should get you with all my employees. That's exactly, what we try to train, right? I mean, and that's part of it. I mean, I mean, if you're buying a $500 bike or a $5,000 bike, people just want you to be like, we're here for you. We're going to, make sure communication's there for you, if, and with us growing the way we are and adding new brands and things like that, social media, I think you mentioned this a little bit, we didn't have that back in the day. So now that exposure's there, the communication's on a whole nother level on that side of things. Outside of just customer service, now it's bringing stuff to the forefront and letting them see it without even having to come into the store. So.
Right. I want to go back to one thing you said a while ago. That was, educating customers on what you have to offer and helping them figure out what it is they actually want. One thing that I've kind of started to realize in the recent past, because there's a whole lot of changes that are happening in the real estate industry right now. You probably heard about some of it. And there's a lot of, people in the business that are, uneasy about it. They're scared. They're, it's kind of changing the way we do things. My take on it, though, is that it's a positive change because when people hire real estate agents, part of what they want is access to houses. That's part of it.
Sure.
But what they really want is someone who does this kind of thing day in and day out to help guide them through the process and make sure that they don't make a costly mistake when it comes to doing their real estate transactions. And one thing I've found is that where we used to just show up and meet people at properties and, just, hey, you call me on the phone randomly, I show up 20 minutes later and let you in a door. People think that that's what they want, but what we found lately is we've kind of changed our model to having people come to the office and visit with us for just 45 minutes or so.
Right.
We kind of do a needs analysis with them, educate them on what we're going to help them do and what we won't do. There's certain things that we can't do based on the laws around our licenses. And every single time we've had a conversation with a person like that, whether they work with us or not, they're always like, hey, thank you so much for sitting down to take the time and explain this. And it's probably the same in your world, because when somebody's getting into bikes, there's an overwhelming selection. There's more brands, there's more models, there's more types of bike than you can shake a stick at. And so when people come into Flugers, what they're really looking for is not just a bike.
No.
They want someone to, because you can just order a bike online. And it'll show up at your doorstep, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But the reason people want to come to see Dereck over at Flugers is because Dereck's going to help them make an educated choice about what they want that's going to fit their needs.
Absolutely. Yep. And that it has been the exact model. And I know you guys are going through the realty stuff, and I did hear about that. But that makes sense to me. I mean, if you don't know where they want, and they may learn something about the area if they're new to the area. They may learn something new about the area and go, you know what, that area sounds exactly what we want.
Yeah.
Like there's a lake over there, or whatever it is, figure that out. But what you can learn with somebody whenever they come into the store, and this kind of goes back to me having to go to them, and then now they, customers come in my door. It's like I get to learn where they're riding at, what their history is. Whether we get people moving from out of town, people trying to lose weight, people trying to just get their kids involved, or whatever the story may be. And we hear some amazing stories from customers. I wish there should be like a TV show, reality show, and like they just interview customers with bikes, especially now that e-bikes have come up. It's gotten a lot of people back on two wheels. But that's the other thing is, you get to know them and why they're going to ride. And somebody might say, oh, well, I come in and I just had surgery on my knees and I'm trying to get some mobility back, that kind of thing. Yeah. Because running or walking even kind of just restricts them some. And so we introduce them to e-bikes or just whatever option, they kind of, look at. But, they then go, you know what, that's perfect fit for me. Like that makes sense. Or they say, I didn't even know there was different sizes in bikes. I've been buying bikes from big box stores all my life, and you're showing me that there's, a small, medium, and a large? Yeah. How's that going to benefit me? Like, it's going to fit you better. You're going to enjoy your ride because we're going to fit you to the proper size.
That's right.
And it's just taking the time, like you said. We had a lady just come in this morning, and she was, wanting to go ride with her 9-year-old daughter. And she came to us, and she was just like, hey, what what would hold my weight, and what would I can get out there with my daughter? What would it be? And so we gave her about 3 or 4 options, and she's like, you gave me a lot to think about. I had no idea. And she's like, I'll be back. She's like, I'll go get my husband. And she's like, I just felt like I learned a lot more. And the support that we can give them on the backside too is going to be more of like, just the relationship extends past just the sale, obviously.
Right.
Which is a whole nother topic, but it is nice. It's nice to be able to funnel something down, get them on something that they're going to actually enjoy, instead of just being in the garage as like a coat rack eventually, or sell it in a yard sale for a fourth the price down the road.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. We want you to be able to get out. And if you have a reason to buy, we want to extend on that. We want to expand on that. We want you to really enjoy it for a reason. That's why we host rides. That's why we host events. We got a lot of people into mountain biking recently, and we host a mountain bike series. And it's just a local trails, like the trails that you just talked about earlier. We have another one in Kilgore so the 3 that you mentioned, and then one in Kilgore. And, we had just those guys that literally just got into mountain biking. That bought the hardtail mountain bike. They were like showing up for that series just so they could be around it, learn the trails, and keep growing with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to offer. We want to have that community growth of cycling. And Longview has great potential of that. And I know there's many listeners out there that have many towns that are growing that way. Longview's not a town that's in the forefront of, like they're usually 3 or 4 years behind on some things. But at the same time, you got a lot of places that have these trails already implemented, like the Borman Trail here in Longview, things like that. And people don't even know about that. As a realtor for you, I'm sure, some people, if you show them there is a trail system in their backyard, that house value goes up to them.
Sure.
Especially if they are a cyclist or runner or just being active.
Yeah.
And so we just try to bring that all the way around. I mean, if they say, hey, yeah, I'm going to ride on the Borman Trail, well, this is the bike you need. You don't need this full suspension mountain bike. It looks pretty, but that's not what you're not going to enjoy it on that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is like what a lot of people don't consider is that, when you get that full suspension, there's a trade-off. And the trade-off is that you've got suspension absorbing some of your effort.
Yep.
And so if you're riding on hard surfaces, smooth roads and things like that, well, you don't really need that because it's taken away from your pedaling effort.
It is.
And I bet a lot of people probably don't even realize that.
No, and they don't, and whether it's a rigid bike or a full suspension bike, they can go to a big box store and just be like, oh, that's pretty. But then their ride's miserable because they just don't know anything better.
They don't know what they don't know.
Exactly. That's it. And that's why we're there. That's why we're in business, is to just educate people on some of that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. So kind of going back to the story side of things just a little bit, You worked at Flanders till about 2015, and then where'd you go after that?
So 2015, I moved back from Flanders as a sales rep.
So you moved back to Texas?
Texas, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I was a sales rep from 2015, late 2015, August of 15, to 2021. So I was a rep for 6 years for them on the road.
Okay.
And all the values there, that's kind of where I was. I mean, once COVID hit though, as a sales rep, the gates were closing. They weren't allowing anybody in or out of the plants, the steel mills, paper mills, everything that I was servicing. They're like, nobody can come in, so it made it difficult for us, as far as like just getting in front of customers. So I was on the phone a lot. I was at my home office. I was just trying to constantly break down those walls through a phone.
Because a certain amount of your pay in that business was commission,
yes,
right?
Yes. We're salary plus commission. And so, it was starting to affect that side of things too. And luckily I had a great customer base, but trying to grow, at that time, everything halted. Like I wasn't growing business, at that point. And it gave me some time to work out of the shop here in town and my home office. And of course the wheels start turning, I was like, man, really where can I be spending my time at and value and things like that. And back probably in like 2010, I wanted to do a food truck yard of all things. This is kind of off the wall, but it was one of those things that kind of kickstarted the whole venture for Flugers, because that's where the name actually was supposed to start at. was whenever I was at Flanders, I wanted to, food trucks just became able to serve in the city limits of Longview. And I was like, man, a food truck yard would be really cool, you know, like for them to kind of go to and migrate to and serve. And we could do beer and wine and things and entertainment. And once I got a sales position, I just didn't feel like I needed that. You know, I could grow within what I was already doing. And so once COVID came back around, I was like, man, that food truck yard, everybody's trying to get outdoors, that kind of stuff. So the wheels start turning. Next thing I know, I look at a location here in Longview. I looked it up. It's been abandoned for 8 years. I was like, man, this is a facility. Like, this is a compound. It's got 10,000 square foot of buildings, but it backs up against a lake. Man, I could really see a food truck yard back here. Yeah. Opened up to the lake, and, you know, let's just call the realtor. Let's see what this is about. So I hit up the realtor, and we scheduled a meeting. I went up there and walked the building, and ceiling tiles are falling in. The flooring's peeling up. As a commercial property, being abandoned for 8 years, you can imagine it just was. I mean,
I've been in some of them. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, there was raccoon traps in it, and like raccoon paw prints on the walls, like in their own.
So you had to do some evictions.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think they got them. Well, I know they got them all out before I got there because there was like cans of tuna and stuff, you know. so I saw the property, and I was like, man, this is huge. Like, I kept going through each door, and it just kept going. I was like, this is awesome. What can we do here? So then I leave there, and then the wheels are really turning. I'm like, this has got some potential, and it's just been sitting here. And so the number was big. Like, I was like, that's a lot of money for rent. That's a lot of money for this. I was like, no way I can pull that off. COVID, again, I keep bringing that up because that era. President Trump had it where we wouldn't get penalized for our 401 to pull that out. We just had to pay the taxes on it, right? Because it was during that time. Yeah. I was like, man, I got this 401. It's not much, you know, after this 10 or so years of being with Flanders. I was like, I got that sitting here. Got some little bit of savings. I was like, what can I do with this? So I started doing numbers. Like you said, the business plan. Yep. I pulled one up offline and did all this. I went to the Small Business Development Center. And for anybody that's younger or just getting into it that hasn't gone to college for stuff, lean on those people. I mean, that's one takeaway from that little span I had was go to the Small Business Development Centers. Yeah. Pick their brains. Sit there and talk to them. Pitch to what what you're wanting to do.
Is that located here in town?
Yeah. So there's one it's based out of Tyler, but there is one here in Longview at the Austin Bank building by the golf course off the loop. Brandy Flanagan, I believe, I think she's still there.
Very cool.
But she was great. I mean, very encouraging. She kind of was realistic about some things. Sure. She pointed me at a few things where I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about that kind of deal. Kind of like reminded me of my previous, jobs. But
sounds like you went about it the right way this time, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was because you'd been through that experience before where, you made the exact wrong decisions and you're like, okay, I got to do a little more homework this time before I just dive in headlong.
Absolutely. A little bit maturity came along in that, from being 21 to 35, 36. And so I leaned on that kind of stuff, but then I got a business plan going. I got these numbers going. I got some excitement behind it. That's trouble, And then I was like, all right, let's meet with the realtors again. Mm-hmm. So I walked through it again, kind of was like, all right, visually, this could work. This is a lot of potential. And then I actually scheduled a sit-down meeting with them. And I'll be honest with you, it was a group there with the realty, and the owners of the property. And I sat there with them, and I had this whole board. It looked like a Pinterest board, but in real life, like right here. Like, in fact, half of it came from my Pinterest board.
Like ideas. That picture of Dennis from Always Sunny when he's doing the
drawings and connecting the lines. Yeah. So I had the property in the middle, and I had like, this building's going to be this. This building's going to be, axe throwing. This building's going to be the retail. And I kind of just blew it up, and I told them everything. And they're like, well, they're realistic. They've been in business for way longer than I obviously have. And I felt discouraged after I left that meeting. I was like, this isn't going to work. This was dumb.
Well, and the thing too is like, and you probably didn't realize this in the moment, but as the owners of the building, they're like, okay, we're thinking about giving this guy the keys to this building, and we want him to be successful.
Absolutely.
Because if you fail, well, there goes the rent money. And so now it's like, we're back to square one. So
yes,
they're probably, there's probably a certain amount of that where they kind of saved you from yourself a little bit in one shape, form, or fashion.
Sure. They did. They made it. They did ask those questions. Like, hey, can Longview afford to have 2 bike shops? Because there is an existing bike shop in Longview that's been here for 40 years.
Yeah,
a great bike shop. And so I was like, they really made me rethink some things.
Right.
Like, really, should I be jumping into this when I have a great job? And it's just, it's making a dip right now. And that's not why I left Flanders. Yeah. But at the same time, it was timing. And so, they made me second guess some things. And I was sitting here going, man, maybe it's not meant to be, and through prayer and just kind of going through with it, we were able to come up with some figures as far as like I mentioned, the ceiling tiles, this place needed to be, if I was to do what I did in there, it had to get remodeled. Yeah. And I was like, hey guys, could you paint it? Could you do this? Could you do that? And they're like, no, that's
commercial.
That's on you.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
I'm like, well, my budget, see, I'm using this and this. I don't have an extra 20, 30 grand to invest in the property to make it look the way I want to. But I did. So that was a turning point. So once I signed the lease, I was like, all right, my landlords are phenomenal. And not too many people would say that, right? There's good and bad. Sure. And so my landlords were willing to help me out for a few months to allow me to remodel it, which, like you said, in their opinion, if I invest in it, paint it, clean it, mop the floors.
That's good for them.
Yeah. If I don't even open after that, they just got some free labor out of it. Sure. Kind of deal. So they risked it. They were like, yep. We'll give you the keys. We'll give you a few months. You can open up whenever you're ready. Let's just say April, May. I think it was March, May. Or March, April. And so I was like, all right, cool. Let's see what happens. And I went in there and ripped up the floors and remodeled and painted and tried to get the look exactly the way I kind of envisioned it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, uh-oh, this is actually coming. This is it. Yeah. I mean, as nervous as I was leaving my, great job with 401, with insurance, everything like that. I sat there on that floor and I got emotional. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Yeah. And so my wife at the time, we're no longer married, but it was hard there too. That was a struggle. I had the vision. I had I had the drive. I had the nerve. I had everything. Which scared, I think, when you have a partner that just doesn't see it like you do, that's tough. Yeah. And so it really worked out to where, yes, I invested a lot of money on the property, but going back to my retail days, you look at a Finish Line, you look at a Buckle, you look at they all look the same. They go in and they remodel that spot in that mall. So I was like, you know what? I got to invest in this, because if I don't invest in this, I have no long term.
That's right.
So I bit the bullet, did all that, opened up April 16th of 2021. And boy, I look back now and I'm embarrassed, of just a little bit of bikes I had, some apparel. I mean, my family, friends, everybody that I advertised because of social media, great turnout. I couldn't have been more happy. In fact, I was thrilled. I was like, holy cow. Yeah. In fact, Elijah came to it. Yeah. He took me outside because at one point, it was pretty crowded in there. Yeah. And he grabbed me and goes, hey, man, I want you to come here. I said, well, what's going on? He said, come outside real quick. He takes me outside and goes, the parking lot was full. We had a food truck there, obviously, on the grand opening. We had some things going on, and he was just like, this is what you did, man. And that right there, I mean, Elijah, again, props to him and thankful for him. But, that was a cool moment, and I wouldn't have soaked all that in because I was just running around like my, chicken with the head cut off. I was like, oh, my God. People need this, people need that. He's like, dude, take a minute and go look at this. And that was awesome. So thanks, Elijah, if you're listening to this one.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He is.
He's a good dude.
He is.
I want to go back to something you mentioned a while ago. You kind of touched on it, and we didn't kind of dig into it. But you said you met with Brandy Flanagan from the Small Business Development Center, and you said that she brought some things to your attention that you hadn't even thought of or that you didn't even know. What were some of those things for the listeners out there that maybe are thinking about doing something weird like this?
Yeah, no, weird, definitely weird. No, Brandy, and again, I mean, it was more of the LLC side of things. Yeah. You know,
the legal structure.
making sure that side of things, your EIN, your numbers, and make sure your taxes, and then your labor stuff. I mean, all that stuff I was still kind of not familiar with, but I knew, you know, obviously going through some courses, trying to, you know, online stuff. But she really made it to where, okay, it's not as bad as it sounds. You know, she kind of relieved some of that relief off of there, saying, hey, we can create your LLC right here. We don't charge you for it. That's the other thing, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. You just pay literally what the LLC is.
That's great.
Yeah. And
fantastic.
It's a great, I mean, that's something that should be definitely, you know, recognized as something that's helpful, because we get a lot of, like, even one of my ex-coworkers or employees that I had, you know, he's trying to do this now, and he's 21, and I'm just like, hey, ask me things. Like, I may not know all the answers, but at least I can get you to those people that can.
That's right.
Brandy and the Small Business Development Center here is one of those. They're recognized for that stuff. Whether it's, I think it's UT Tyler that actually sponsors them, that gives them that, they pay those people to help give them, everybody this opportunity. Right. And so I was like, hey, here she is. Here's her card, you know, that kind of stuff. Because you want those young guys to grow. You know, I don't want to be like me at 21 and trying to do a detailing business that I thought could take over East Texas. Yeah. And then it not be successful because I wasn't knowledgeable about that thing. And so this was, it was very helpful. And I definitely encouraged going to them or seeking out somebody that's like that.
Yeah. And the thing I've learned after doing this for a while, you know, you're a younger person, you're wanting to start a business, and, you know, when you watch TV shows and movies and, you know, you read books and things like that, fiction, and, you know, it's like, oh, business is cutthroat, it's dog eat dog and blah, blah. It's really not. My experience has been that when you go to another business owner and you're like, I mean, unless they're like your direct competitor, you probably don't want to do that. But you know, you go to somebody else who maybe owns a retail store, like what you're doing now, and you're like, hey, listen, I'm thinking about opening up a retail store, and I don't know what I don't know. Can I buy you lunch? Pick your brain. Yes. Most of the time, they are more than happy to sit down and make sure that you don't eat it.
Absolutely. And I've had people come to me, and I'm like, I'll try to help you, you know, whether it's, I've had people come to me about point of sale systems. What kind of point of sale system are you using? What are you running? How do you label everything? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Because we try to stay as consistent with that as possible. Sure. But like, even listen to your first podcast. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to toot your horn, because that you're having conversations that I want to have with those kind of people. Even me being only 3 years, I'm early. I'm just barely.
I'm a neophyte.
I'm just trying to crawl right now. You know, I'm still crawling. But those guys having those sit down conversations, you know, I would love to sit down with Elijah, you know, today, but I assume, and I haven't had the chance to, because I think you just released it yesterday. Yeah, so
2 days ago.
Yeah, so I haven't had the chance to sit down and listen to it. But I guarantee you, I'm going to learn something, and it's going to feel like I sat down with Elijah, like I've been trying to do for a few years. And I think that's awesome. I think that's what's awesome about this podcast. And for me to be on there, I'm like, man, these guys have really, they're up there. They've been in the business for a long time. Oh, man. They know their stuff. And here I am, you know, 3 years, and I learn something new every day.
We all do.
Yeah. And I'm going to learn something from this. And that's what you have to be. You have to be open-minded, and you have to just constantly be receiving, be a sponge, and try to absorb as much as you possibly can, whether it's from a realtor that obviously, I mean, you guys, again, associate with the kind of same thing, the same customers I do. You know, you sell houses to the people I sell bikes to. Yeah. And I mean, that's what's great about community growth and community businesses. And the fact that you've had 2 podcasts that I know those guys. Yeah. And out of association, like, we're not best friends or anything. So you're not going around in our friend group just interviewing people, but it's just East Texas kind of stuff where we know each other.
Yeah. That's kind of, you know, I haven't really talked about this on the podcast before, but the reason that I started wanting to do this was because I would meet business owners like you, and, you know, a couple of times, like, I, you know, went to lunch with Elijah, and, you know, we sit there for an hour and a half over lunch, and we just have these long conversations about business and life, and but a lot of it was about business. And every time I'd meet a new business owner, I would find myself just having this really long, in-depth, interesting conversation. And one day I was like, it was about 8 months ago, I met somebody, and I was talking to him and I want to get him on the podcast. Blake Gage, he's a guy I go to church with, longtime family friend too. But we were talking about business, and he was telling me about this record company that he'd started. And I'm a musician, so I was like, "Oh, I was nerding out, man." And in that moment, I was like, "Why am I not recording these conversations?" And so that's kind of where the idea for this podcast came from. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm a consumer of the medium. I really enjoy them because I spend a lot of time on the road.
Yeah.
And I I was like, I have audio experience. I know how to do that. I'm not so great at working cameras, obviously, because we're not videoing anything yet.
Yeah.
But we're working on that. But I was like, I know how to get good quality recordings. I know how to talk, and I have some good friends that run businesses that I feel like would maybe come sit down and talk to me. Let's give this a try.
It's awesome.
And see if it works.
It does. I loved it. I love the first episode I got to listen to. So,
thanks, man.
Congratulations, man. It is fun. It's awesome. It's a blast.
And the hope for me was that, not only would I get to sit down and interview business owners and learn stuff myself, but, it's that community building aspect that you were talking about. It's sharing this wisdom and this knowledge with other people. And all they've got to do is click a button, like and subscribe.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Click a button and you can hear from some really successful people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise hear from.
Sure. Or us little guys that are just starting off, like, again, I feel like there is still stuff to learn from and have these conversations with people of all levels. I mean, I don't claim obviously to be successful. I mean, we are growing as far as I am looking to expand. I'm wanting to add another store here in the next year. And
where's that going to be?
So we haven't really announced it just yet.
Oh,
no, you're good. So we're actually looking, I think, in the Shreveport-Bossier area.
Okay.
Tyler's a great area. We looked at that market, but as I mature, even within where I'm at now, as much as I want to be in Tyler, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's a wise. I feel like it's a decision I won't look back and go, you probably should have done that, because I still could in the future. But as far as an investment, and as far as the clientele and trying to get exposure and try to get to where there's not too much competition, we could still grow the community, the growth of development and stuff, and have that over there. But at the same time, it's a market that's kind of untapped.
Right.
And so, I think that's where we're going to land.
Well, and you kind of touched on this too, and I'd like for you to dig into it a little bit more. You said we looked at the market. How do you do that? I mean,
oh gosh,
what is that? You don't have to go in the weeds, but I mean, what does it kind of look like to analyze a market that you're wanting to get into and make a decision about whether you should or shouldn't do that?
Sure. I mean, well, to me at first, and this has kind of been about a year and a half, I've kind of was like, all right, how can this happen if it did happen? If we want to add another store, how could it happen? And for one, it had to be in at least some kind of driving range where I wasn't going to be expanding myself daily to drive to and from, because I would be the one probably opening it just to make sure it's going okay.
Right.
So one was location, where in this radius, or where can we land at? Tyler was on the map at first because it just really made sense, because we get customers from Tyler.
Well, it's Longview and Tyler.
Yeah.
It's like Dallas-Fort Worth.
Exactly. And so I wanted to be over there, but you look at the bike shops that are already over there, and one of them is super involved, like we try to be. And so that's kind of a battle. I was like, all right, we may not win that. Right. And it's not that there's a win-lose, but it's just like, if you're going to invest money and you want to grow, then you got to look at those things.
Yeah, it's not like a win-lose kind of thing. It's more of like can we do something that they're not already doing?
Correct.
Maybe a little bit better than what they're doing.
Correct.
And the answer may be no.
Yeah. I checked that box off saying that's already fulfilled over there.
Right.
And there were some other things that weren't fulfilled, as far as brands, right? Or customer service, things like that, that we'd get feedback from. So that's really what sparks the whole idea. Like when customers come in and they're like, "Hey, you guys really need to be here. You need to have a store over at this, over in this area." You're kind of like, "Do we? Yeah. Are you sure? Is that a real thing?" And so after just 3 years of feedback, and it's exciting to hear those things. But when you look at the bigger picture, It's like, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make, as an investment, make sense.
It also goes back to that thing, too, we were kind of touching on earlier, and it's been a little bit of a theme. It's consumers don't often know what they want. And I find myself as a consumer, I'll be the first one to raise my hand that, I don't always know what I want. As a matter of fact, when I was getting set up to do the podcast, I was like, all right, I need an interface because I got a mixer that I record drums and stuff with, and it's like a big 16-channel thing. And I was like, I don't need all that. Plus, I don't want to have to reconfigure everything every time I sit down to record a podcast. Like, I want to have everything set up where I can fire it up. Let's go. And so I was like, I need a little 2-channel interface. I need a Focusrite. I had exactly what I wanted in mind. Well, there's this company called Sweetwater. And I don't know if you've ever done any audio stuff, but if you ever do get into it, Sweetwater is where you need to go.
Okay.
Because just like Flugers, they have this wonderful customer service setup. And although you can't walk in their store, you can call them up. And they've got people. I have a dedicated sales rep. I couldn't tell you the guy's name, but he calls me. Wow. Out of the blue. And he's like, hey, you got that Rodecaster Duo. How are you liking that thing? But anyway, that aside, like when I was trying to look at what to buy, I was like, I'm going to call Sweetwater.
Yeah,
and talk to them and see what I need. Yeah. And I called them and I was like, hey, I'm getting ready to start a podcast and I think I want a Focusrite Scarlett 2 interface. And, what are your thoughts on that? He's like, well, that probably would do okay. He's like, but they actually have dedicated podcast mixers. There's this thing called the Rodecaster Duo that you should check out. It'd be perfect. And I looked at it and I was like,
that would be perfect.
That's it. And that was a case of I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, I thought an idea. Did. Yeah. I thought I knew what I wanted. Yeah. But then when I talked to someone that was actually more knowledgeable than me in that particular area and leaned on their expertise, it was like, oh, that's not what I want at all. Yeah, right. It made a whole different thing. Yeah. And so, with businesses like yours, you're offering an experience and a service that they just can't get from Amazon or from Walmart or those other places. And not that they don't provide valuable service. No, they do. They do. If you just want a, super duper El Cheapo bike to throw in the back of the truck and see if you even like mountain biking. Sure, go for it. Yeah. But if you're like, okay, I'm enjoying this and I want to get something more purpose built, I'm ready to take it to the next level. Now it's time to go to Flugers. Absolutely. And, or maybe even not. Maybe if you're just one of those people, you're like, I'm going to buy once, cry once. That's how I am. It's like, I'm going to go to the right place the first time. I'm going to talk to the right people, make the right choice. Yeah. Yeah. And we get people buying e-bikes. So e-bikes is a huge market right now. I mean, by the way, many brands. I just rode that e-bike that you brought over here. And that thing is legit, dude. Yeah. I mean, the pedal assist is crazy. Yeah. I mean, pedal assist and the throttle control on a lot of them. Yeah. So you have pretty much like 3 levels of e-bikes. And we sell group 1, group 2 kind of deal, where it's just a little bit of options for people, whether you do a pedal assist, 5 levels of pedal assist. So, and a lot of people are like, even you made the comment, you're like, I kind of feel like this is cheating. It's kind of like, this is a cheat code is what you said, I think. And it kind of is. Because I have a hardtail mountain bike. Yeah. So, yeah, it would be. And I mean, we have full suspension e-bikes now. They don't have a throttle. You just can't go out there and just, like a dirt bike out there on the trails. Right. So a lot of e-bikes levels, which is like the level 3, is getting banned on a lot of trails. I know a lot of states aren't allowing them on national parks, things like that. Why is that? So because of those levels, the level 3 is pretty much all throttle. There's not even, on some of them, there's not even pedals. They're just pegs. It's almost like an electric dirt bike at that point. And so it's just like anything else. They do, kids will get out there or people will get out there and just, tear, stuff up. And it just gives a bad rep. So even in Tyler, they banned class 3s. So class 3s got banned in Tyler on their paved trails. Longview will do it eventually. So talk a little bit about class 1, class 2, class 3. What does that mean? Sure. So class 1s is going to be the ones that are governed out at 20 miles an hour. Okay. And have pedal assist and a throttle option. Gotcha. But they don't go past 20. So most of ours, even at like level 1, you'll only go 8 miles an hour. Okay. And a lot of people like that. They don't want to go 20 miles an hour. They don't want to go... Well, if you did want that, you would just go get a dirt bike. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, and then
each level goes up in increments of speed. So you'll have 8, 11, 15, then 18, then the full 20 at level 5. And that's class 1. So class 1 is really where a lot of cities are open-minded to because they look like a bike. They go as fast as people do on normal bikes.
Right.
They're regulated. Class 2s are going to be kind of on the fence because Class 2s are still going to have the capabilities. They're going to go up to 28 miles an hour.
Which is what we rode today.
Yep. You rode a Class 2, so it goes up to 28 miles an hour. Still very, I mean, you can take a Class 2 pretty much anywhere these days still. But
do you think that's going to change?
No, I don't think so, really. I think where they kind of have the speed ratings, I think is obviously, there's people that get out on the Borman Trail and go 28 miles an hour.
Right.
It's not a place to go 28 miles an hour.
No, there's too many people.
There is. And I go to like 15 on it. Right. Whenever I have to, or I take one out just for fun, it's like 15's perfect, anything past that. We get some riders in that are like, man, this guy just blew past us. He had to be at least going 30 miles an hour. Those are the guys that you're going to have to watch out for eventually, but that's where Flugers, brands or companies like us, want to present to cities, the boards, and educate them on why they shouldn't ban all e-bikes.
Right.
It's not for sales. No, I understand that. That would affect us. Don't get me wrong. Sure. But at the same time, it's educating you on why there is limits on there. Say, okay, yeah, Class 3s, which again, Tyler has already done. Don't want them on the trails.
Right.
There hasn't been an issue of that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
We get a lot of feedback from riders and runners and stuff on the trails. But there is some people that just kind of still go fast on an unnecessary or, in an area that just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's where your levels are. And we really only deal with Class 1s and Class 2s. Mm-hmm. I don't deal with Class 3s. Right. What is the brand? Oh my gosh, the boys at the store are going to kill me for this because they always want one, but it's almost like an electric dirt bike at this point. And we don't deal with those. They're like, man, you need to get these in. You need to sell these. I'm like, nope, because that's when the city's going to come to us and say, hey, we've been getting calls and people are saying they're buying them from you. Can you educate us on these? I can educate you, but I can't tell you why you shouldn't ban them. I'm on your side with this. I think we kind of already ruled out and kind of already geared our brands towards what the cities are going to allow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so did you ever think that when you got into the bicycle business, you would be influencing policy decisions?
Oh my gosh. So, and that's, I don't do politics. I'll be honest with you, and it wasn't something that I've ever really, I never ever wanted to really deal with. But yes, I go to more board meetings. I go to more council meetings. I go to more. And
see, I would have never dreamed that. I would have never dreamed that we were going to have a conversation about, influencing municipal policies.
I was just at one last month, and it's about the business or the city budget, talking about where the money should be going. And, we want to voice our opinions on that because it's trails,
Right.
If my customers come in and I get it all the time, well, you didn't mention a trail that is on city property right now. It's a mountain bike trail that the city owns, but you didn't mention it because it's not maintained. The city didn't even know it's there on their own property. Locals built it out.
Okay.
It's in a flood zone, just like the Borman Trail is.
Sure. And
locals have done an amazing job of making these features out in the middle of the woods that the city owns these woods. And so I went to the city 3 years ago when I opened. I said, hey, what's the odds of us fixing up Grace Creek Mountain Bike Trail? This is behind the Mazda dealership, like off of 31. And they're like, what trail are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, we need to get out there. You need to see this. So we get out there on their side-by-sides, and I exploit what's out there, whether it's man-made features out of wood and all these neat features. And they're like, man, to be honest with you, we didn't even know these were back here.
These dudes trespassing on city property, just building all this crap out. And they're like, what's going on?
And it's funny. I hear stories, me getting into this industry, in 21, people have been doing this in Longview forever. I cannot take credit for any of that, but I hear these stories of them getting ran off of properties that are, privately owned or city owned. And they just want somewhere to ride.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized real quick. I was like, how can we get involved as a bike shop and try to fight for people to get them safely or get them a nice place to ride? So we've been working with the city for 3 years now. They had a change in management in the Parks and Rec area. So I lost some traction, and that was kind of hard.
We were talking about that the other day on Slade's podcast, the importance of relationships with people that work in government.
Sure.
Because although I know that Flugers really tries hard to, build a community around cycling and stuff like that. And, part of that is, knowing where the places to ride are. But I didn't really think about the fact that like some of that stuff is managed by the city and that, as a business owner in that field, they're leaning on your expertise. But then the other part too is that like, you've got a relationship with this person that's running Parks and Rec.
Right.
They head on down the road and now you've got a whole new relationship that you've got to build.
Yep.
And they don't know you, you don't know them.
Nope. And they don't know our history,
Right.
And that was tough, when Scott Karen left, the new representative, he came in, John Albertson, he came in and, he's, I'm sure those guys are getting hit from all sides, from everybody. So I try to play it kind of like, hey, I sent him an email, it's just like, I just want to introduce myself. This is my kind of what my goals have been in the last year and a half. And I'd love to meet up with you. He jumped on it. He was very responsive. We've talked about it now 3 or 4 times. And this last meeting, I think we're really going to make a good push for it. Obviously, with anything city, you got to get everything approved. You got to get surveying. You got to get engineers involved.
Yeah, it all moves at half the speed of continental drift.
Oh my God. and I'm learning that kind of stuff now, like I didn't never have to deal with this stuff. Yeah. And I think, hey, if we get enough people out there with some shovels, we can make this happen. If we get some donations of lumber or if we get some companies involved, we could really get this going. It never happens that fast.
No.
I've been, trying to hit up some people for, donations just to supply some lumber for some bridges because that's a flood zone. So we're just trying to get it raised up and try to get it accessible all year round. Nobody wants to ride a trail that they can't ride when they want to.
Yeah, you can't cycle through 2 feet of water.
No, and there's sections that are that bad.
Yeah.
And so, I've learned the trail. My fiance and I now, we spent all last year, well, not all last year, but about a month and a half, every chance we got, we went out there and walked and tagged and marked that trail, tried to clear it. Her and I spent more time out there and picking ticks off of each other, afterwards. And we finally got it where we got about 4 miles again because it was just so overgrown. It was just neglected. So her and I marked it all.
How many miles of trail do you think are out there?
Oh, so the history is that there's 11 to 12 miles.
Wow.
At one point, there was 11 to 12 miles out there.
Dang.
Of just mountain bike trail.
That's enough to wear you out.
Oh, yeah. It's more than I want to maintain. And so that's what I was kind of
even just from a riding standpoint, like
it
is. Hit 11 or 12 miles on the trails, that's a pretty good day.
It is. And so I say my job, but as this genre of business, like you mentioned, I do feel like it's kind of my obligation to shine light on these kind of things.
Yeah.
And my customers are supportive. They appreciate it. They give me feedback. A lot of them are like, man, I've been working on that trail all through the 2000s and it rains, it grows up and it disappears. Or we work on it for 6 months and then it disappears, kind of deal. So we're trying to get a game plan, whether it's from the feedback in the past or it's, people getting involved, whether it's organizations like us. So adopting the trails, that kind of deal. We have a trail running company now out of East Texas. I'm not associated to, but he came over and he's Texas Outlaw Running, and he's been hosting races on that trail. So he's now been maintaining a little bit more. I did it for so long, and it's like, man, that's a second job. It's just me, and I didn't want to get other people too involved because I didn't want the obligation for them to feel like they've been defeated, like their time's just been wasted. Yeah. And so he's been out there doing an awesome job lately. So there's getting some momentum.
That's great.
And getting the city on board has been, sure, it's getting closer. Let's just say that. I can't say anything's going to happen too soon, but they know that property's is undevelopable. I mean, they can't develop anything on it.
Right.
So why not put something on there for the community?
Yeah.
It'll bring people. So I'll leave here and go ride, and I'll go to Kilgore to go ride.
Right.
You know, or Marbley, like you said, or White Oak even here in town. And it's like, Longview has nothing. And people are leaving Longview to go ride. It's like, we kind of feel like we need something internal to go and attract people to.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to kind of get involved and help out with that, what's the best way for them to do it?
Yeah. Flugerslongview@gmail.com. Send us an email or just swing by and talk to us in person. You know, I have a store manager now, which is another topic.
I saw that.
Yeah. So Raul Ramirez, he is going to be taking over this location. That's what we're trying to get rolling. But sit down with him and I, you know, see how we can, you know, we're going to be dedicating trail work days once the city kind of gives us a little bit of, whether it's money or whether it's materials, things like that. So that's our other thing. We're not asking for money. We're asking for just, if you just have some wood left over or some stuff, some road millings is what they're providing for us now. So
What's that?
So whenever they scrape off the old roads to lay down new asphalt, they have to do something with that old millings that they dig up, that they take that skim cut off of.
Right.
They just pile that up and they use it for other things, whether it's to, you know, for other roads, but it's always loose, right? And so they got in contact with me just last week and said, hey, our road millings is piling up. We can come out there and help you put a path out there to kind of get it a little bit more attractive. So we have a game plan, but that's the kind of stuff that we're asking for. Stuff that's just sitting around.
Right.
Doesn't have to be money. So once that all happens and we can actually get a good date of how volunteers can help, we'll be blasting, whether it's on our emails or social media, stuff like that. So that's a good way to do it too, is just follow us.
That's great. So yeah, talk about the store manager thing a little bit, because you've kind of been running the show for 3 years.
I have.
And, you know, I think there comes a point in every business's life where there's a little bit of a crossroads that you come to. And you have to make the decision, you know, am I going to own a business or am I going to own a job?
Yes.
And so you've obviously come to the conclusion that you want to become less important in the day-to-day operations of Flugers.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
So with the whole mindset of doing another store,
Right.
I knew I couldn't be at both places, you know, obviously. And Raul has been literally a customer since day one, grand opening. You know, he bought a Diamondback bicycle from us on grand opening weekend. I've got to know his family over time, him and his brother both. And, you know, you kind of build these relationships. And he's been with a great company in the oil field for 17 years. But he's definitely shown a passion for two wheels, you know, and the brand. He's been committed. He always volunteers. Him and his family are very supportive of whatever event we host at the store, whether it's our Tuesday night bike rides or our Shred the Pine series. They're always there, and you see that, right? As a business owner, you're like, this family gets it. They've bought into it, whether it's literally bought into it by buying our brand of products, or they're buying into what we believe in. And he has done that. And him and I have had these conversations many times, you know, and I don't always want to be like, hey man, you know, like you need to come over. But over time, I just kind of teased it, you know.
Kind of plant those seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it took a while, obviously. But I knew him being with a company for 17 years and things like that. It was where I was like, all right, like if I want to grow, I gotta spend some money and invest. Yeah. Not just in product, but in people. Yeah. And I will tell you right now, it's a scary thing to you know, when you got somebody that has a family of 5 and things like that, and you're like, man, we're just a bike shop, but the vision to grow and then also being able to provide for families like that, you know, it's scary. And that's exactly what I'm living in right now. You know, this transition, you know, of me getting out and not being the face. And I knew I couldn't be the face forever, or I knew if I was the face for Flugers much longer, customers would always come to, you know, look for me, or, you know, just be like, hey, is Dereck here, or whatever it is. So I knew the sooner I got out from being the face and gave it to somebody else, that kind of would help me grow faster.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, I guess?
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, just being honest with myself.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, I love Flugers Longview is my baby. You know, it's my pride and joy. It's a fun experience.
Right.
It's a great adventure that I've had, and it's not going anywhere. We still have the food truck yard to grow. We still have, things like that.
And I want to ask you about all that too. Is like, you had all these big, visions of everything, and I guess we'll kind of touch on that in a minute because I'd like to, kind of hear a little bit about how all that's playing out. But so you've got Raul that's kind of holding down the fort in Longview as you guys work toward opening up a new location.
Yeah, I mean, I hope to train him in the next, obviously. In the next 6 months before we open the store. It
takes a little bit of time.
It does. And the day-to-days, things like that, ordering materials, building those relationships, things like that. And I can't express, the feeling of knowing that you have the right person in the right place, right? Like you're like, all right, I knew I recruited him. Like I knew we're friends, but I recruited him for a reason because he knows his stuff. He has the passion for it. He's doing a great job, and I'm excited. That makes me it gave me the confidence to go now look for another location, right? So it allowed me to give me that freedom to go, I got time to go explore now.
I totally get that. And, whenever you bring great people alongside you, it definitely pushes you to be a better version of yourself because you're like, well, this person that I brought on board is a freaking awesome person.
Yes.
That makes me as a business owner, it's like, I want to be better so that, I can help this person be even better than they already are. But if I'm going to do that, like, I got to be on my game.
Sure. Well, after 3 years, I kind of got in a routine of the store and managing it and things. And he's already made me better since he's came on board. Like you said, I mean, he comes in and he's eager and he's doing stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's go do that. He's almost pushing me now.
Yeah. Well, and they have great ideas, just earlier this week, actually, Summer, who's sitting here kind of keeping an eye on the recording for us. Shout out to Summer. She just came on board to my real estate team, and I don't think she knew that she was going to be doing something completely unrelated to real estate and helping us record a podcast. But here we are. But yeah, she's already jumping in, and she's fixing problems that I've been sitting on for like 2 years.
Yeah.
She's already jumping in and just diving in. I'm like, well, dang, I got to come up with more stuff for us to do then.
This podcast might have not even got recorded if it weren't for her, actually.
I don't know that it would have. I would definitely be more distracted because I'd be like looking over my shoulder and checking the computer to make sure it's all running.
For sure. And here's the other thing. With that said, I've only grown it because of the team I've had. Okay. So I don't know how this happened. I know exactly how it happened, but I don't know how the stars aligned one day. Before I opened the store, I was out riding my mountain bike with a group of guys at the church at Marbley, and a kid was riding his bike out. Of course, the kid's doing a wheelie down the whole, just riding a wheelie as far as you could see. And I'm just like, who's this little kid, And so I ride over to him, just to say hi. Like I just randomly was like, I need to go talk to this kid, see what he's about. And so I go over there and talk to him, and I introduce myself, and I was like, man, I said, you ride bikes quite often then, huh? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, I said, you got a job or anything? And he's like, no. I said, well, I'm about to open a bike shop. I said, you know how to work on bikes? And he's like, yeah. I said, do you want to work for me? Like, you want to come apply? And he's like, absolutely. And I was like, all right, well, we're about to go ride. Here's my number. Here's my card. Or I think I just gave him my phone number. I didn't even have cards at that time. Here's my phone number. Call me. I said, but we're about to go make another lap. And he goes, I'll go ride with you guys. I interviewed him the entire ride. He was behind me, and I was just like, all right, man, where you go to school? Just straight picking his brain as we're riding and stuff. And got to know him real quick through all that. And he became my first employee, and
right then and there before you even opened.
Before I opened up, he was at grand opening. He was outside of my family volunteering their time to help me open. He was my only employee at that time.
Wow.
And that was scary. But at the same time, I pushed him probably more than I should have as far as like his comfort zone, of getting things. But man, talking about a quick learner. I mean, that kid, I say kid, he's 21 now, just turned 21. So I had him for about 3 years. And since I was his first employer, at that age, you kind of want to see what else is out there, right? Like, I think he could see a future with us, but he's driven. I was talking to him on the way here. He's wanting to kind of start his own car lot kind of deal. And this is what I'm talking about earlier when I say there's young people out there that want to pick your brain on how to get stuff going for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm never going to, I always want to support that. Like that was me at 21. So I get it.
Even if it means your shop foreman is leaving.
Oh my God, he was my assistant manager, and I relied on him so much, you know. And I was like, I get it. I was in your shoes 20 years ago, or 18 years ago. I
I've heard it said. I'm not butcher this quote, but great businesses grow great people, and those great people go on to grow other great businesses. And I've always heard it said that when someone leaves your company to go on to a bigger and better opportunity, whether it's working for themselves or whether it's with some other company, you've got to take it as a compliment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I did. I mean, he's a good kid.
Yeah.
He's got a good head on his shoulders. Great mechanic, unfortunately. Losing one of those, because service department is obviously a big key factor for a bike shop. And he's good. And luckily, his best friend came on not too long after that, who is very mechanically oriented and great customer service. I landed those two kids within about 4 months of when I opened. And boy, they are the key to a lot of my success.
Yeah.
They were able to handle stuff that I didn't have to spend time on, or whether, the headaches of just being hands-on with bikes, which I could have done, but man, the business would not have been able to. I couldn't have spent the time to grow brands, bring brands in, do the marketing, advertise, take that picture of that person that bought that bike and put it on our social media for people to see. Yeah. I couldn't have done that without them. And so, unfortunately, Landon King, who I have now with me, Landon's in nursing school, and he's about to start his internships and things too. So there's we're posting for some help just in case, which is about to happen this semester. And man, that's tough. That's tough on business. We have the longest lead times we got right now.
If you're wanting to get into the bike business,
if you want some competitive pay in the bike repair service department, please call Flugers.
That's right. Reach out to Raul.
Yeah. Reach out to Raul. Set up an interview. We've actually had a few already. This will probably, whenever this kind of posts, hopefully we already have somebody. Hopefully, because it is that way. I want to get somebody in and get them trained and get them going the way we repair bikes and what we offer. So it is. That's kind of the, again, stress of opening a new bike store. We're having trouble right now, even trying to get people to, and again, Landon's a great kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's in nursing program and he's eager. Yeah. And it's like, I can't afford you. Because that's a great career to get into. I can't deny that. Mm-hmm. But man, you're good at what you do here. Yeah. And I hope one day, and a lot of nurses, they get into the field, they figure out whatever it is. Some stay in it forever, some don't stay in it very long. Yeah. And it's kind of like, okay, hopefully you remember us as like, hey, somebody you can come to and maybe run a store one day. Yeah. And he's good at it. So it's like, man, this is my sales pitch to Landon to try to keep him on.
Please stay, Landon.
Yeah, come on, Landon. Just a little bit longer.
Yeah. So along that line, what are some challenges that you guys face in your business? Beyond some of the common challenges that all businesses face, especially these days. Mm-hmm. Seems like finding and maintaining quality people is a real challenge. But what beyond that are some challenges that you guys have faced along the way?
Well, it wasn't probably the brightest idea to start a bike shop during or right after COVID, because bikes were hard to come by.
Unobtainium.
You could not come across. People were waiting at the doors, and if you got a pile of 10 bikes in a day, they were gone, and brands and companies were getting even way more behind because of parts. So you got bike brands like, let's just say Santa Cruz that we offer. Santa Cruz is waiting on derailleurs from Shimano or SRAM, and they're way behind. They got to support, like you mentioned earlier, hundreds of different brands, and they only get so many during that time. And that was tough because, like I said, I was embarrassed of what I opened up with, but my rep could only give me 7 bikes of one of my main brands. I had 7 bikes on the floor of my headliner brand at the time, which was Diamondback. And I was like, all right, let's see how this goes. We're rolling the dice now. But since then, that has gotten a lot better. Parts have became more available. Newer styles of parts have came out. But it's still a struggle to get some of this stuff. Yeah. Like I have a guy that would love to build out a bike with us, and a really nice bike, but he's asking for these things that I'm like, I can't even get that. You can go to Amazon or online to a parts dealer online and get it, but I can't get it through my wholesalers. Right. Because that's who all the bike shops go to. So it's very competitive in that state. It's kind of a struggle, but at the same time, there is ways around it. Buying online, not marking it up. There's solutions. Right. So there's nothing that's going to stop us from providing. Right. But bikes availability is still kind of hit and miss. So, I get some customers in there that, like our e-bikes, one of them just went out of stock, and we were without them for a month and a half. For whatever reason, they just not stopped producing, but they had a delay in something. And we were building up back orders, 6, 10 bikes in that month and a half for that one model that was just on back order. Now I didn't know when I was going to get it again.
I've kind of wondered, maybe you could speak on this. I wonder if COVID taught businesses and manufacturers that you don't have to have as much stuff on hand as you think.
Yeah. Well,
holding inventory costs money.
It does. Yeah. And we try to do the bare minimum, right? And I'm not saying we don't carry, I'm above 7 bikes now. We're at least 100 in the store.
Well, there's stuff you can come look at, but we might not be able to sell you what you want and deliver it to you today.
Yes. And that's part of what we try to offer is say, hey, this is the bike. This is kind of the size. You can ride this one, but the color that you want, we would have to get it in. Or the next stage up, next level that you want, I'd have to order that one.
And a quality bike starts at $800,000. So, spending that kind of money, you want to get what you want.
Absolutely. And the color that you want. Sure. At least if they offer it in a different color and you go, I don't want purple, I want the green one. Right. So that's what you're going to get. And that even just recently, we had a customer that did that. We had one on the floor his size, but he's like, man, I really like that other color that they offer. I said, no problem. We'll add it to our next shipment. Shipment gets delayed like a week. And again, out of our control. Yeah. Communication. I was on the phone with them just yesterday. I was like, hey, man, and the customer service, again, just trying to make it right. And if it's out of our control. But I think you're right, though. With COVID, things were in such high demand. And then I know in the bike market, they oversaturated it after COVID. They were like, oh, it's hot and rolling. We need 1,000 frames of this color or whatever it was. And then it got oversaturated. Then sales started to happen. In fact, that kind of hurt me in
sales. You mean like they're putting them on sale?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. They're marking them down. Right. And so the market started coming down on all these brands, and it still kind of is. I'm not going to lie, that like Santa Cruz is running some great sales and things like that. And it's like, there was a window where I had bikes on my floor that I bought at a certain wholesale price. They were selling them online for less than that, direct to consumer. In 22, Black Friday, I thought I was going to have to close my doors come 2023. And I've never said that out loud. So, but we matched the prices of those. And the company was like, hey, if you sell them at the price, hey, we're about to blow this major sale. We're overstocked. We finally got that shipment in from overseas. And we got canisters, right? And it was like, we're going to blow them out. But if you match the sale price, we'll give you a credit for the difference of what you paid for them for what you sold them for.
But that's not money in your pocket.
That ain't paying the bills.
That's a credit towards your next order.
Exactly. And when you're a small bike shop, when you're only a year and a half, 2 years old, I was like, okay, and people are seeing them online. So they're coming in our doors. They're like, hey, man, I saw this bike for, half off. I'm like, yeah, I got 3 of them right here. Here you go, And it was great business. I was sitting there like, oh, we're selling bikes, money's coming in. And boy, let's say January, whenever invoices, net 60 or whatever started coming in, I was like, uh-oh, we're going to be.
Well, and the timing on that couldn't have been worse because, I think a lot of businesses have that Christmas hangover in January and February.
Lots of retail does.
Yeah. Sales slow down because everybody's spent their money until those tax returns come in in February.
Yeah.
Then it's
well, if East Texas, I don't know, you got listeners probably everywhere, but in East Texas, it's like, we get our snow, during that time. And
as far as I know, Dereck, I think we have actually reached all the way to Mount Pleasant at this point.
Oh, we're booming. We're going to, this episode, we're going to get far.
This episode's going to go to Paris, Texas, probably.
Let's do it. There's good riding in Paris. There's a pump track up there. So hopefully we get some business out of Paris.
There we go.
Yeah. So, there was a point where I was like, uh-oh, learning curve. That I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Or I should have charged a little fee for convenience of having that bike in stock. So you didn't have to order it because it was right there. Mm-hmm. So since then, we've changed some policies of ours. We've said, hey, you know what? This bike is on sale, like the bike you rode. It's $400 off. But because we have it here, it's on the floor, we are going to actually add a $50 build fee because it's already built out. It's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
You can go online and buy that bike for the same sale price, but if you want us to build it out and bring it to us, we usually charge like $100 to build out a bike.
So if somebody were to order a bike online like that, it shows up in a box and you've got to assemble it and put it together and all that stuff.
And a lot of it times is maybe the front tire, the handlebars. There's nothing really too bad, but sometimes it is a little more elaborate.
Yeah.
Especially with disc brakes and things like this. I'm going to bore some some listeners. They're going to be sitting there going, oh, disc brakes. I don't want to hear all this. But there is some tedious things that does take a little bit for specialty people and the tools to do.
Right.
But we try to be as a convenient thing. But I learned matching that sell price isn't always what it's made to be. Yeah. I mean, even though now I make my points whether it's on sale or not, they shifted that as far as companies go. Now they look at it and go, we realize the bike shops can't survive off of credit.
Yeah.
So a lot of my brands have shifted and said, we're going to mark them, but you're going to get that same price, or you're going to get your points no matter what it is.
What do you mean your points?
Whether my percentage. So my points, my percentage. So whether that's, 10%, profit or 50%, I get a kind of range depending on what brands or whatever it is.
I see.
So my percentage or points stay the same, whether it's on sale or not.
Well, that's good.
That has been a great turning point for us because we do a lot of that to where we may have one model on the floor, but you may ride a different size and I have to order it. I still make my points on that order, even though it's the sale price. So it is nice.
Yeah.
And it's a good option to have. Like you said, inventory costs money. And for me, it's like, how can we simplify things? And how can we sell from a screen that you can get on your phone right now and pull up any of my dealers' websites and probably order from most of them? But how can we pull up a screen in front of a customer in our store, still make it worth their valuable money and effort to just check out with us right now, then wait for it, us have it here and that. And I learned communication on that end is very key too. We send them a text as soon as they leave, or we send them a text whenever it arrives. Hey, technician's about to build out your bike. We're excited for you to see that bike. Come check it out.
Cool.
We're going to text you as soon as it's built out. As soon as the technician gets done building it out, they get a text, an automatic text that reads, hey, bike's ready for pickup. We got your name on it, and we can't wait to take a photo with you with that bike.
That's awesome.
And a lot of ladies appreciate that. They get a heads up. So, they're not just sitting there, hair is a mess and a T-shirt. They're just like, thanks for giving me a heads up about this picture,
Yeah.
And they like seeing that. And that goes into the marketing. And, that's kind of.
So just to kind of get in the weeds a little bit, because I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to like systems and processes. What kind of software do you guys use to help with keeping in contact with customers and all that kind of stuff?
So the best thing I did was reach out to other bike stores across the United States. In fact, I think I tried to find the furthest away bike store I could.
So that the better chance of them actually giving you some help.
Yes, exactly. So whenever I was in Florida for Flanders, I shopped at a bike store, right? And I followed them on Facebook whenever I was there. So I always had them in mind. Yeah. So I called them up and I said, hey, I'm in Texas. I used to live in Lakeland. I used to shop with you guys. How can I, what's your point of sale? How does this all start? And so they gave me a few brands. Lightspeed Retail is what we use. Okay. And it does have a lot of integration plugins. You have to add, or it's a third party that you buy and it drops in and it plugs in. And that allows, that allowed me to kind of learn real quick what not to do and what to do. And then podcasts. I was listening to a lot of bicycle retail podcasts. And
there's a podcast for everything, isn't there?
There is, absolutely. And when I was in sales, being on the road, I had plenty of time to listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. So bicycle retail management, one of them. But they would have people on, that would, whether it's paid advertising or whatever. But Lightspeed was on there, and they were actually made from a bike store, but now they do retail for everything. In fact, I've learned one of my stepdaughters works for another retail place here in Longview that's clothing apparel. They use it. Yeah. I was like, okay, that makes me feel, big and, like I'm actually, kind of a big deal with a point of sale system that operates to a higher level than I probably can make it work eventually in the long run.
That's one cool thing about doing business nowadays is that there is such a wealth of software and apps that can really help to take your business to the next level. But, I'd say the takeaway for someone who's listening to this today and who maybe is looking at starting their own business is that, look for those resources like podcasts or other people in different markets that are, that would otherwise be your competitors, but because they're so far away, they're willing to help you and share with you and teach you some things. And look for podcasts and YouTube videos and online forums and websites and all that. I mean, there's so much information out there now.
There is.
If you're, wanting to get into some kind of a business, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I think I had 3 written down at point of sale systems, and I literally reached out to all 3 of them. They give you demos, they kind of explain what they offer. And Lightspeed had a category that blew my mind, which was their service department. It was able to, you could literally build off of a customer's name and have their service department, have it all organized. And once you integrate that texting system, as soon as you press finish, as soon as my technician says, yep, job's done, everything's scanned out, my labor's in it, I press finish, it sends an automatic text to them with their name integrated into it and the total, their work order number, and usually 9 out of 10 times before we had this system, we'd call them up, nobody'd answer. So we couldn't get money returned on just work orders. It was hard for me to be like, hey, we have a $300 work order, but I can't get somebody to answer the phone. Text them. All right, cool. I'll be, or what's your hours? And then we have an automatic little template, plug our hours.
Nobody wants to talk on the phone these days.
If it's not a number they didn't save or, or whatever, they're like, oh, go to voicemail. I ain't worried about that. But it helps out. But communication, though, I mean, again, it kind of boils down to that.
Yeah.
So
talk a little bit about the other projects that you had in mind whenever you started Flugers.
What was on that bulletin board of ideas that I brought to the board that day? One of them was the food truck yard. So. Again, that was one of the originated ideas, and the food truck yard was something that I feel like was community needed. You know, for all, just local food trucks could come and spot up, be around some music, be around some drinks, and entertain some people. And we're doing it. Power's going in right now for the food trucks.
It's awesome.
The lake, I think I brought you a shirt. So there's a nonprofit that owns the lake right now. It's called friendsoflakelemond.org.
Cool.
And you can go to their website and donate or whatever.
And you guys back right up to Lake Lemond.
Correct. Yeah. Our back gate opens straight up to it. And now they have actually installed and are providing a dock for us to launch kayak rentals and demos.
Cool.
So that's the next phase for us, is to get people that live around this area that just want to kind of say, Saturday morning, instead of going and riding my bike, let's just get on some water and go fish. Let's go rent some kayaks, or let's take our kayaks down and put them on the lake. I think for a little while they're just going to do donations only, just to help raise some more money, just to try to help promote it. But eventually it's going to be open to the public. And there's going to be a trail all the way around the lake for about a 1.1 mile trail.
Cool.
And there's a brewery. They are going so far. They're going across the lake from us, and so we'll have this connection of hub of social stuff on the weekends. The food truck yard, the band, the brewery across the lake. You'll be able to rent bikes, kayaks, that kind of stuff. Eventually, tie into the Borman Trail is the big goal, I think, for the nonprofit to be, hopefully, however it works on their end, but it be tied into the trail system. So we have this connection of trail systems that will help people just ride their bikes, ride into our backyard, have some entertainment on the weekends. Bring the kids, bring the dog, on the leash, and just have a good time. So, and I think that's our next phase for sure here.
That sounds awesome. Do you? Is that something you're going to be trying to do this fall, or is that more like next year? Or
I want it to happen tomorrow, right? Like, I'm excited for it just to be on the water and things.
Yeah.
The nonprofit is hopefully completing phase 1 here in the next 2 months, which is including us and the dock and everything, which they've already installed. They have part of the trail, but it's only like maybe a quarter of a mile, if that. It's just one stretch to kind of show what it will look like. Mm-hmm. And so I think the bigger picture is probably going to be like the whole trail system isn't going to be done for another year or so. Mm-hmm. I'd probably give it another 18 months or maybe a little more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big project. I mean, they fixed the spillway. They've raised the water about 4.5 feet because it's been neglected. The whole property, in my opinion, has been kind of neglected. So it's a huge undertaking.
Who owns it?
So it's an investment group,
okay.
But it is the Friends of Lake Lemond.org that is the nonprofit that really operates off of it.
So if someone wants to go and contribute, they mm-hmm. can go to friendsoflakelemond.org and mm-hmm. throw in $20 or whatever they feel led to do.
Or come by the store and buy a Friends of Lake Lemond T-shirt for $20.
Hey.
And the proceeds of that goes to the store or to the trail.
I love that.
We don't get anything from that one, but that's why we're trying to be the face for all this. We're trying to really shine some light on it. Go into some meetings, go into some boards, trying to get it, exposed to the community.
Love that. So if people want to find Flugers, mm-hmm. The store online, where do they go?
So we have a few options. Well, flugerslongview.com is our main website. And then all of our apparel, which is what we've kind of been diving into lately, like the shirt I'm wearing, things like that, is designed all in-house. And we have a online store. So hopefully those people in Paris or farther north eventually, if you do want to buy some Flugers apparel, outdoor apparel, you can go to the bonfire.com/Flugers. We have our own online store for there. Now, all of our bikes, everything like that, all of our brands are on our website, but we don't have any online sales for that currently.
Cool. And you guys are located on Highway 80?
1232 West Marshall Avenue, Longview, Texas, and hopefully eventually in Shreveport-Bossier area soon.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap this up, but Dereck, thanks for coming on today. Yeah. It's been an awesome conversation. I'm glad we got to visit a little bit, and we'll look forward to coming out and enjoying some nights at the Lake Lemond facility. Absolutely. And maybe hitting the trails together.
Well, we'd love to have you out there, and thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate you guys.
Dude, appreciate it.
Ronnie, thanks and awesome job, man. Love it.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Just hit spacebar.
And it's almost like Cheers, but
Yeah. I remember it was like it was like when I was in high school.
it was the place to be.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Well, that's what the vision is there, is that we're making the Cheers of this Outfitters company, is that we have people that come in there that just want to, maybe they're not buying something. Maybe they just want to have a conversation with people that, appreciate things like they do. We want to have an environment where you just want to come hang out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'd love for you to buy something because that would help pay the light bill. But, above that, we want you to have a good experience.
So it goes back to that whole
Focus.
The big four.
Oh, yeah.
The price, how fast can you get what I want, and quality and customer service.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And so, you're going to be definitely solving
the customer service. That's going to be very important.
Yeah.
The quality, we're making that happen with our purchasing decisions. Mm-hmm. Lead time, hopefully it's on the shelf because that handles the lead time. If it's something that we need to order, we have the right suppliers that can get it there in a timely manner.
Yeah.
The one that, we're going to strike out on sometimes is going to be that price because you got big box.
Yeah, you do. But the thing is like people like that personal touch.
Yeah.
People like going into a store that has a good vibe to it.
Well, especially like, let's say you want to learn how to shoot a bow.
Yeah.
And you go to Academy and buy a bow. You may or may not have people there that can teach you what you need to know about it.
Right.
Which is almost like buying a car and not knowing how to drive. You can really tear up a bow or hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
So on the flip side, you go to a company like what we're establishing where you have the talent and the skill and the customer service that can say, all right, this is what you want. What do you want to know about it?
Yeah.
We're going to help you succeed with it.
Have you ever shot a bow before? No?
Yeah.
Hey, let me take you out back and show you how to use this.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, we got a test track back here.
Yeah.
We got a range where you can go set this up. And, our friend Max, his dad just recently retired, big fisherman. He already said, hey, I want to come work part-time there.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
He's a perfect guy for it. He knows all about fishing. He's got a great personality.
Yeah. Good talker.
Great. And so we're looking for people like that where, they appreciate, they have a passion for the sport and, they want to come share it with other people. And because of that, all those pieces that we talked about, I think it's going to be successful. I did tell Sloan at the beginning, there's a lot of mom and pop outfitting or sports stores that don't make it. So it's not going to be easy, but if you build that foundation right, it'll be great.
Well, it comes back to doing good work and assembling a team of good people, like you've done with your other businesses, and making sure that you're providing a really good experience to the customer every time that they come through the door, and making sure that they leave happy after they have come through the door.
Yeah.
I mean, and all the things that go into that, like, all the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis have to be geared toward those objectives. It's like, okay, what decision can I make next that gets me closer to providing a better price, a better experience, a better quality product, and faster service. So that's good stuff. So to kind of wrap everything up, one question that I would have for you is, like, if there's somebody out there that's looking to start a new business, because you started 4 of them now.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
Ooh.
Like, what is the one key piece of advice that you would tell them?
It's not going to be easy. And I think you need to know that so that you don't have any expectations that aren't realistic. This is going to be a grind. Like, there's going to be so much sacrifice that has to take place for this to be successful. And it may be years of sacrifice.
30 years.
It could be.
Like your dad.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah, that's right. It could go on. I mean, your goal is to make it as minimal as possible, but you need to be realistic about it. If you're trying to do something big and do a great job at it, it's going to be a lot of sacrifice. And I would say, especially if you have kids, is like, think of what you're about to do is not for you, but for their benefit, so that you you control in your mind that, okay, this is a huge investment, but it's not for me. I'll make it because it's bettering these, the kids that I love.
Yeah.
And obviously some people don't have kids. So, but just whatever you do, just don't make it about yourself. If anything, you make it about the customer and put them first in it. But I don't think putting yourself first in any of this makes sense because it's not about you. I mean, in business, it's about the families and the customers. So
it's about solving a problem for someone else.
Yeah, that's right. And if you do a good job, you get rewarded for it. So that, and then whatever you budget, just budget a lot more. A lot of people don't really realize, or maybe don't put a whole lot of thought into it. But, if you have inventory on the shelf, like, I don't care if it's fishing lures or steel, you buy that inventory. And sometimes your vendors, at first they sometimes don't, but they'll give you terms. Like, you have 30 days to pay me back. But you're usually not going to sell that within 30 days in some cases. And so now you have product on the shelf that you own, you paid for, but you haven't sold it. So there's always a bunch of money in limbo that is waiting to be sold, that hasn't been sold, and you've already paid for it.
Right.
You'll never get it back. You'll get it back if you sell the business or if you had to liquidate, but there's always limbo money.
Yeah.
And if you're...
And I guess once you grow a sizable business, that amount of money in limbo
it grows with it.
Can be pretty substantial.
Yeah. I mean, if you start, you have $1,000 in inventory, you grow and you have $1 million in inventory. There's always a chunk that's just hanging out in limbo. You never touch it. And so that's okay. I mean, this is part of doing business, but you need to account for it at the beginning because there's going to be this money that's untouchable.
So if you were to say, like, on a percentage basis, maybe if you can, what size of a chunk of money relative to, say, your revenue would you advise someone set aside to account for that money that's kind of floating?
I don't know if I've really put the math down to that. My dad, he was just and some of his thoughts were simple. It's like, just double it. Whatever you write down, just double it.
Yeah.
Because it's
like construction. Whatever time you think it's going to take, just double it.
Yeah. I mean, we went through hell in the recession, and you do not expect those. That's the worst thing about business is the things that you have no control of.
Yeah. And there's so many of those.
Yeah. Trump got in office and he's a business guy, so you think business is going to be great. Well, not too long into his presidency, he slapped a tariff on China for their steel. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see the reasons why he decided to do that, but all of a sudden, steel went up 100% overnight.
Yeah.
The cost of it. And so when you have these parts that you're selling to customers that have a fixed cost or fixed price to them, you don't have the opportunity to readjust those instantly. And so all of a sudden, your material costs twice as much to make this part, and you're having to sell it for what you told them you'd sell it to, or what you'd sell it to them for. You can screw yourself. And you're not screwing yourself. The government's screwing you. There's probably other scenarios, but
you're getting screwed by proxy.
there are things way out of your control that you have no foresight for. You don't know it's going to come. Yeah. You just have to be prepared for it.
And by be prepared,
you just in that case, you have
some money sitting there.
In business, money is what makes things work. It's the lubricant to business.
Yeah.
And so you better have a lot of it because you don't know when you're going to need extra lube.
So the two key takeaways here are focus on doing good work and have more cash on hand than you think you really need.
I mean, there's just so many things you can't expect to happen that may and will happen. Just count on it. I mean, in our time, I think we've been through 3 recessions in our local economy. We had the big one, and there's been 2 other dips. We're in the oil field, so we're in the oil field belt. Anytime the oil field dips, we feel it. I mean, you were selling houses like fire last year.
Sure.
And what interest rates were 3.5%?
Well, 2022 they were.
Okay.
2023 it started really skyrocketing.
Okay. So in a small amount of time, your interest rates doubled.
Just like your steel prices doubled.
Yeah. And you didn't expect that.
No.
And that's not anything you caused. So if you're a new realtor and all of a sudden these interest rates start making your customers disappear, let's say you bought a building to set up shop in, or you invested in this your computer software, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a little team under you. Those are things that you can't control that happen to you. So, I mean, you just have to think about that.
Yeah, and you know, in my experience, like in dealing with that a little bit, is like you've got to roll with it. You've got to be prepared to hustle a little harder when the times get tough, and really, you know, look for a way to solve the problem at hand. And it all goes back to that whole problem solving thing. You know, so many things in business go back to that. You're like, okay, the problem is that steel prices doubled, interest rates have doubled, whatever it is. How do I solve for that? What do I do?
And I would say if you're not naturally, if you would say I'm not a good problem solver or I do not like problems, don't start a business. Like for real. Like don't do it.
That's good advice.
You're going to disappoint yourself because
Yeah.
it's not going to be fun. You're going to be pissed. You're going to be stressed. It's not going to end well.
Yeah.
If you enjoy solving problems and you're not overwhelmed by problems, do it. It's great.
Yeah.
You'll find satisfaction in it. If you don't like problems, don't do it. Please, God, please don't.
Yeah, I would say that's true. And I mean, you know, I'm a very small business owner, but I do enjoy solving problems, and I think if I didn't, I would have a very different outlook on what I do.
Yeah.
So, man, I've really enjoyed talking about all this stuff with you. You know, I've learned things about you that after being your friend for 12 years, I didn't even have any idea about. So, man, it's been a good talk. Thanks for being my first guest on the podcast. And
It's an honor.
I hope it's well received.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, we're all impacted by business, and business is a great thing.
Yeah.
But you know, there's just you're always learning. So you're always solving problems, but you're also learning too.
Yeah, and I'm hoping people will learn from this and be able to take some valuable insight. And I think you've given a lot of that tonight. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. See you, man.